outside the 10. Carr tips it in there. It's he spins into the end zone for the touchdown. Watching greatness on one end in LeBron. There's a dude with 35 in white getting it done defensively and then offense taking over the fight. Mama, there goes that man.
They have shared a brilliant championship battle, but the championship can only be won by one, and it's going Dutch in 2021. Max Verstappen, for the first time ever, is champion of the world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this week's edition of the Waterboy Experience. I am, of course, your host, the Waterboy himself, Davis McLemore, and boy, what a crazy week it was in Formula One, and what a depressing and crazy and depressing, did I say sad? Yeah, I'm going to add sad in on that. Week in the NFL, but enough of that before I start crying and having a breakdown. We are going to first go over our nondescript motorsports with our good friend, the gear-headed freak, the Red Bull chugging son of a gun, the CEO and CFO of Nye Productions, Mr. Jason Shaddix. Jason, how are you, my man?
How dare you not mention it?
What did I mention? What did I forget to mention?
That there is a new Formula One world champion.
Oh my God, yes. There is a new Formula One world champion. And his name is...
Super
Max Verstappen is now officially a two-time back-to-back Formula One world champion.
Woo!
But really, the way he won it was a little bit... Wouldn't you say it was a little bit weird?
Weird's not the right word. Lackluster is the right word.
It was just kind of like, oh, okay, he's the world champion. Now what?
They literally had to convince him and Red Bull, no, you are the world champion. Like during the cool down room after the race, he was like, am I the champion? What? Are you
I'm
sure?
not the champion. What are you talking about?
Exactly. So it was a bit of a disaster of a race, yet it was also still a good of a race. Regardless,
It was not nearly as great as when he won it last year.
a lot of people have said this season is boring, and I disagree. It's not boring. The issue is last year was just like, wow. Like Red Bull versus Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton versus Max Verstappen. It went to the bitter end, to the bitter fucking end. It was highs and lows and fucking highs.
They were separated by like 1 point, or at one point they were even tied late in the season, right?
I think they went into Abu Dhabi tied.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was entertaining. And, you know, this year, would you say that even Ferrari kind of didn't fuck up their own season, but they fucked up the Formula One season in general?
I would agree, yes. They were doing really good at the beginning of the season, and we all thought, well, it was a one-off for Red Bull. They won the World Championship 2021 in what could only be described as controversial finish. And everybody was like, well, Ferrari is obviously the faster car, and it was. Unfortunately, Ferrari did fuck it up because they made mistakes. The team made mistakes on calls, pit strategies, everything. And then Charles didn't do any favor for himself, and he made a lot of mistakes. He even made a mistake this race that ended up winning the world championship for Max. And we're going to get to that. But it's just been Ferrari. Like every time Ferrari gets close to a world championship, Ferrari happens. It's the best way to describe
They do Ferrari things. And they remind me of a particular NFL team, if you know what I'm saying. So what happens now? Now that Max Verstappen has sealed his world championship, do you keep driving like you were competing for the world championship, or do you kind of lay back?
Well, the world championship, the drivers' world championship is like nobody can win it now. It's Max's. Even if he DNFs the rest of the season, he's still the world champion. What they are fighting for is the constructors' championship, the team championship. And actually, they can win it in Austin next 2 weeks, I believe, I want to say.
So if they win it there, what does Red Bull do? Do they just kind of hang back and they can just relax for the rest of the season?
Actually, yes. I mean, they can win because winning actually helps. It makes Red Bull look like a strong brand. It helps with the sponsors because they're like, I want to be part of that team that not only won the world championship, constructors championship, but they won every race afterwards. You know, that looks good for them. Now, honestly, I believe they're going to win it either in Austin or in Mexico, which is right after Austin, because,
What if Checo came P1 in Mexico?
mate, do you realize...
Storybook ending.
Oh my God, you realize, like, if he wins the Constructors' Championship because of that P1 finish, babies will be flying into the air, all right? Women will be throwing themselves at Checo's feet. So will men, all right? So will men. Mexico will be partying day and night for about a month, all right? His face will be put in the dollar bill or peso bill, all right? He would be considered God over there. Well, I'm exaggerating, obviously, but to have a Mexican driver win in Mexico and win a championship, even if it's the Constructors' Championship, dude, like, that would be great.
Plus, it would give us another reason on this show to yell, Vamos, Checo! I love doing that, honestly. I think I like doing it better than the Supermax. I want him to win more races so we can do that on every episode.
But it makes it more special when he wins it.
So, what's your news? What's your nondescript motorsports and what's your Formula One?
All right, so I've got a bit of a news, so bear with me. We're going to start off with NASCAR. Now, I did talk about NASCAR sometimes, not a lot, not often, because honestly, like I said many times, I think it's boring. I think the playoffs make no sense to me.
Kimi Räikkönen is racing. We cover it.
You always want to cover Kimi.
Yeah.
But I have some interesting news. Now, in the world of NASCAR, Haas Stewart driver Cole Cluster was fined $100,000, a 50-point deduction in driver and team points, and crew chief Mike Shiplett was suspended indefinitely, as well as fined $100,000 for an attempt to manipulate the race in Charlotte this past Sunday. On the last lap, Cole slowed down enough to let his teammate, Chase Briscoe, gain a few positions that would see him advance to the next round of the playoffs. Now, Chase wasn't stripped of his playoff spot as NASCAR viewed that he had earned it. Now, I gotta mention it because it's pretty much what everybody's saying. NASCAR fans are pretty mad about that call because they claim NASCAR didn't care about the other times that a race manipulation happened. Of course, NASCAR brought up the biggest scandal of race manipulation from 2013, but there's been more and they haven't really acknowledged it. A lot of fans are saying, like, what the fuck, why did you call them out this time but not the previous time? Is it because they're not your golden boys?
That sounds like what it is. The teams that generate money, they tend to kind of let them do whatever they want, but, that's just NASCAR.
Maybe, but they've kind of been in hot waters with the team for a little bit because I forgot to mention this last week, but Kevin Harvick was penalized for what NASCAR claimed was an illegal modification made to his car. Now, this is something that happens sometimes, but the reason why I'm pointing this out is because Kevin Harvick is one of the most outspoken drivers in NASCAR about the new Gen 5 cars' lack of safety. Right now, there are 3 drivers who are out with an injury, and one, Kurt Busch, has been out for nearly 12 consecutive races due to concussion-like symptoms. The thing is that NASCAR was hoping that the Gen 5 was going to give the sport a breath of fresh air, like in Formula 1, but it hasn't been going so well. One of the races this year has been described as one of the worst races in a very long time, if not up there with some of the worst of all time. So many fans feel that this was NASCAR's attempt to make all the drivers shut up about the issue that seems to be plaguing this new generation of cars. What do you think about that?
That's just fucked.
It is, and let's be honest, NASCAR hasn't been doing great.
No, they haven't. They're miles behind the professionality of Formula One.
Which even then, Formula One is under fire for
It's got their own problems.
Yeah, so that's one of the things. Now, let's move on and let's go into the world of DTM racing, where Sheldon Vanderlinde has become the series champion after a crazy race in Hockenheim, in which we saw a few cars hit the barricade at crazy speeds, and actually one of them threw a fireball out. Like, it was a weird crash, and it was interesting, to say the least. So he's won the Drivers' Championship, and Audi has won the Constructors' Championship. So there's some DTM news. I was going to cover them this season, but I kind of forgot about them.
Congratulations. I like this.
LeBron James.
That's a good one. Anyway, continue.
All right. Now, this is another news that pertains to Formula One, but not quite Formula One news. One of Formula One's supporting race series has seen its last 3 races canceled. The W Series is a racing league in which it gives women the opportunity to race for free. Now, of course, not just anybody can join, as you essentially had to qualify, but it did give a lot of women the chance that they otherwise wouldn't have been given in Formula 4, Formula 3, Formula 2, and so on, due to not having enough money to participate, because it is very expensive to do racing, even at the junior levels. Not only was it free, but many consider it the purest form of racing, because not only were all of them racing in a spec car, that is a car that is the same car for everybody, but there wasn't different teams, it was all run by one team. And the girls would trade race engineers so that not one person had an advantage over the other. And throughout its short-lived stint, the league was financed by donations and sponsors. One of the big sponsors was Caitlyn Jenner, who sponsored 2 cars. Unfortunately, an American sponsorship fell through and the series was canceled. The championship was given to the leader, Jamie Chadwick, who had won all the previous seasons since its inception. So that means that in 2019, 2021, and now 2022, she has been the only W Series champion. And look, what they try to do was great, because these girls do deserve a chance at racing. The issue is, like, 99% of them weren't good. Quite bad.
So they couldn't compete in Formula One?
Honestly, no. Nothing to put, like, I'm not trying to put down girls or saying they don't belong in racing, but even Jamie Chadwick, she tried her hand at Formula 3. She was completely decimated by the rest of the boys. And it's sad, you know. I mean, we've had one woman be in Formula 1, and I think she did pretty good until the car gave out. But it sucks. But even she wasn't as good, and she was miles better than the rest of the girls. And even she couldn't make it in Formula 3. So think about it. In racing, there's a lot of guys, because it's a prominent male sport, there's a lot of guys gunning for, you know, a top seed, because even though you're really good, you still need a top car. And there's a few percentage of those guys who are actually good enough to be considered top level racers. Now think about with women, with less women in motorsports than men, the chances of one of them being as good as any of the guys is really low compared to the guys. So like I said, it sucks for them. And you know, hopefully she gets a shot somewhere else, because she did improve a lot and she did show that she had potential, but she wasn't Formula One material.
Well, sometimes you just got to tell them,
Get out the car!
All right, so that's pretty much all the news that I had that wasn't related to Formula One, and even the last one was kind of cheating. But let's move on to Formula One. On Friday night, Pierre Gasly and Alpine had come to an agreement that will see Pierre compete in the all-French team for 2023 and beyond. And not so long after that, AlphaTauri announced that Nick de Vries will be joining the Red Bull sister team for 2023. I feel this is a great move for Pierre, as it looked like he would never get a chance at the Red Bull team after his failure debut in 2019 that saw him be replaced halfway through the season. Though as of recently, Alpine has had their fair share of issues on and off track, they are still a very fast team that can dominate the midfield. Now, as for Nick de Vries, it's also a great opportunity, as he has shown in Monza that he can extract a hell of a lot of performance out of a car that can be labeled as subpar. So good for both of them. And you know what? Nick de Vries not only comes in as a really great driver, but he comes in as a Formula E champion.
So here's a question, and I know that they did make a good move here with Nick de Vries, but flashback, if you were looking at Mick Schumacher and Nick de Vries, would you take Nick over Mick?
Oh, you really have to put me in this position? Really? Right now?
Yes.
All right, look. Right now, if I was in charge and they said you can have Nick or Mick, I would say, well, I love you, Mick. I think you're a great driver, but Nick de Vries proved that he is a better driver when he took that shitbox Williams and got it to the points in Monza. So he's earned his place. He's a Formula E world champion. I know it's not the same as Formula One, but he is a champion, and he's older.
Proven himself.
Yes, he's older, actually. He's 27 years old. He's been around the block for a little bit, and he's finally getting his big break, and I have a lot of high hopes for him. Mick, on the other hand, look, he's improving. I'm not saying he's not. He's been beating Kevin Magnussen since, I think, Silverstone when he turned it on, all right? But it just does not seem like it would be a great idea to have Mick Schumacher along with Yuki Tsunoda, who, again, if I was in charge of AlphaTauri, I would have fired Yuki and hired Mick and hired Nick.
So what if you had Mick Schumacher and Nick DeVries on the same team?
I would tell him, Mick, get your pen and pencil out because you're going to be paying a lot of attention to what Nick does because you need the help, brother. I know you have potential, but maybe he can help you figure it out. Now, moving on from that, someone who has confirmed their departure from Formula One is Daniel Ricciardo. During an interview, he was asked if the Pierre Gasly news was a dash at his hopes of staying in F1. Daniel said that he wasn't surprised that Pierre got the seat, but he did say, quote, "But I think the reality is now I won't be on the grid in 2023, end quote. And then confirmed that it's his intention to come back in 2024. But personally, I think that it's going to be near impossible for him to come back to Formula One after leaving it. Like, you had 4 lackluster seasons with 2 different teams, Renault, which is now Alpine, and McLaren. We saw him dominate in Renault, but at the same time, it's not what they expected from him. McLaren saw Lando Norris completely destroy him, and then McLaren had to go behind his back and hire a different driver before his contract was up. Honestly, if you're a team principal in Formula One, would you really want to hire Daniel Ricciardo after basically knowing that his prime is long gone? And honestly, that spot should go to a different driver, somebody who is better and who's younger.
Someone who can make much better of it than Daniel has.
Exactly. All right, now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Last week, we talked about 2 teams being over the budget cap. The FIA moved the announcement from last Wednesday to this past Monday, which I updated the folks last week. And the FIA announced that Red Bull, Aston Martin, and Williams had broken the cost cap procedures, but only Red Bull had gone over the budget cap. The way I look at it is they broke some, didn't turn in their paper on time. That's the way I look at it. Because they specifically just said that Red Bull was the one who went over the budget cap. And I can't confirm this, but I don't know if this is a meme or if it became a meme after they said it, but apparently it has to do with Red Bull spending too much money on catering.
Yeah, I've seen that. And I mean, would they really be mad if they spent too much money on catering? It's not like it's their R&D department that they're putting all this money into. It's food.
Well, that's the bullshit answer, really. A lot of people are saying, they're guilty of it, even if it was less than 5%, which it was. They have to be punished because this just opens the door for other teams to do the same thing. And in Formula One, if you let them have an inch, the teams will take a mile. So the FIA has to put their foot down. I love Red Bull, but they got to put their foot down. And most likely what's going to happen is they're going to get some deduction in the points. They're going to get fined. They're going to get reprimanded publicly. And that's pretty much it. But they really got to hit them where it hurts. So nobody else tries this.
There's 3 things you never do. 1, ask a woman her weight. 2, ask a Red Bull catering director his salary. And 3, ask Toto Wolff how he knows that they went over the salary cap.
I want to know who told him.
I want to know how he knows. I want to know if he knows how he knows.
By the way, I also saw a confirmation that somebody asked Toto, hey, what did you say? Did you say no, Mikey, no? Or did you say no, Michael, no? But because of your accent, it came out, no, Mikey, no. He said in Abu Dhabi, no, Michael, no.
No, it was no. It's still no, Mikey, no to me.
And for the rest of the world, no, Mikey, no.
So not fair.
Toto, that is racing. Those were the simple days, Davis, when we had Michael Massey and we didn't have these idiots at the FIA in charge of the race this weekend. Oh, boy. Let's start with this race.
What a seamless transition.
Yep. All right. So the rain hit the Suzuka circuit right before the race was about to start, throwing the grid into a bit of disarray. Many teams in the midfield were actually quite happy as they could give them the chance to gain a few positions. Pierre Gasly was set to start from the pit lane. And for once, Davis, the FIA, the racing stewards didn't postpone the race.
This is unprecedented.
It is. Now, bear with me because it's downhill from here. The race starts and Verstappen gets a poor start and Charles Leclerc gets ahead of Max, but Max breaks deep into turn 1 and retakes the lead. Vettel gets hit by Alonso before the first corner and spins out and ends up going from 9th to last. And then Carlos Sainz hits the barricade after losing the rear coming out of turn 11. Zhou Guanyu spins out at the hairpin of turn 11. Pierre Gasly barely sees Zhou and then moves out of the way when an advertising board came flying from the barricade that Sainz had, and the board hits the front of his car and gets stuck on his front wing.
What the fuck?
I'm not done yet, motherfucker.
Flying signs?
Yes. Alex Albon is out of the race after his engine stopped working, so he did not finish the race. And again, coming out of turn 11, and how the accident for those guys wasn't worse, I have no idea. Because while watching the onboard cameras, you could barely see a few feet in front of the car, and visibility for the driver must have been worse. A safety car...
They should have postponed this race.
Actually, yeah. A safety car comes out and is almost immediately replaced by a red flag, and the race is postponed until the worst of the rain goes away, which was expected to be 10 to 15 minutes.
I'm just imagining, like, driving and then all of a sudden, bang, signs flying, everybody gets in a crash.
Pretty much how it went. Now, the race was set to restart at 12:50 a.m. Yes, I was up at midnight watching this on Saturday, then Sunday.
Yeah, you sent me a snap of it and you were like, fuck, I stayed up for this.
Yep, because a minute before the race was supposed to start at 12:49, the FIA said, we are postponing this race, this restart. And I said, fuck, I'm going to sleep. So I fell asleep. I woke up the next day and then I looked up what happened. So the race was red flagged for about 2 hours and 15 or so minutes.
Jeez.
Oh, yeah. After the race restarted, there was less than an hour left and there were some good battles, even if the drivers were a bit cautious. Almost immediately, drivers began to pit for intermediates. These wet tires that they have, they don't fucking work. Because the way the Formula 1 cars work this year around, they suck in the air through the floor of the car, which is called ground effect. Unfortunately, it grabs the water and it creates bigger sprays, and sprays are even worse with the wet tires. Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso were fighting like hell at the end of the race. They were less than 100th of a second apart. Imagine the race in cars where the 3 cars are side by side at the checkered flag. That's how close it was, except Vettel was a little bit ahead and he won the race. Well, he didn't win the race, but he won that battle for P6, I believe.
That would be the icing, the cherry on the top if Vettel won this race. That would actually be pretty cool.
It would be, but you know what the cherry on the icing was for this one?
What's that?
Formula 1 didn't capture it on their cameras.
How? No camera caught it?
The onboard cameras caught it, but not the big cameras because they were focusing on Max.
Ah, fair enough.
All right, so an interesting thing was our boy, Schumi, actually led P1 for a little bit as everybody was pitting for new intermediates. Now, he got passed by Max, and then passed by Leclerc, then passed by Checo, and pretty much everybody was passing him. And Haas thought it was a good idea to keep him out instead of put him in the pits for a change of tires from wets into intermediates. Nope, he stayed out, and by the time he went into the pits, changed tires, came out, he was dead last. Literally, Haas ruined the race for Mick. And here's something, and I told you about this. During qualifying, Kevin Magnussen, P18, could not get past there, stayed in Q3. Mick went all the way to Q2, and he actually ended up being P12, I want to say. And you know what Gunther Steiner, the team principal for Haas, said?
Probably something stupid.
He said, it's such a shame what happened to Kevin. We wish he would have gotten more positions. And when they talked about Mick, he's like, well, I expected more from Mick.
It's literally your fault, dude. Like, you expect all this from this kid, but you're not giving him what he needs. Literally, it's like you're expecting him to win by himself even when you've got a shit car, you've got shit strategy, you've got a shit race director, And let's face it, he's got a shit teammate.
Pretty much, because he's been beating Kevin Magnussen this entire time since Silverstone. And he's just been doing really great. Now, he hasn't been getting any points because every other team on the grid has upgraded the car except for Haas.
Yeah, that's another thing. He got shit upgrades. But, like, I still believe in Mick. I just think he's not on the right team right now. And I think eventually he will go somewhere else where he can be appreciated and used to a much better standard.
Yep. Anyway, let's move on. Checo was hunting Leclerc the entire race for P2, and Leclerc almost got away, but at the last turn, the pressure that Checo had been putting on Leclerc worked, and Leclerc locked up and cut the corner. Checo went into the corner right, and because Leclerc didn't give back the position, as per regulations, he was handed a 5-second penalty. And here's the thing. We talked about it earlier. Max didn't know that if he was a world champion or not, and the reason was, in order for the drivers to receive full points, there had to be 40 laps completed. Because the race was less than, honestly, 40 minutes, there wasn't enough time to get 40 laps in. So the FIA kind of bent the rules and everybody got full points and Max became the world champion. And honestly, it was because of Charles Leclerc locking up and making a mistake again that won Max the world championship. Checo obviously got P2, and that's really great. A Red Bull 1 and 2. Leclerc, he needs to do better. Look, this is his first time fighting for the world championship. I get that. So he's inexperienced, all right? But he's been in Formula One for a very long time now, since 2018. He should know how to drive by now. You're fighting for points. You're fighting for Ferrari. I know Ferrari fucks up, but brother, you can't be making these mistakes.
It's not all on Ferrari. You have to put some of it on yourself.
Exactly. But let's talk about the FIA, because I was telling you earlier that the FIA has made a few mistakes. Now, this overshadowed the Max Verstappen win. I mean, it was lackluster, but it still overshadowed it. After the safety car was deployed at the beginning of the race, they did a full lap before the red flag was thrown. During this safety car period, Gasly went into the pits and got a new front wing and then was put on the wet tires. He raced back to catch up, and when he came out of turn 11, he swerved out of the way as the recovery tractor was on the left part of the track, and everybody from teams, drivers, and fans were pissed at that. The reason being that in 2014, on the same circuit with the same weather, we lost a young, prospering talent, Jules Bianchi. There was an incident on track, and the area had been yellow flagged. That means you can drive at a reduced high speed, but you can't overtake. The recovery tractor was out there recovering the car when Jules lost control of his car and ran off the track and hit the back of the tractor head on. He was taken to the hospital where he went for immediate emergency surgery and was placed in a medically induced coma. Unfortunately, his injury was too grave, and 8 months later, his family decided to pull the plug as he was brain dead. Jules had been the last driver to die in Formula One since 1994, in which the legendary driver Ayrton Senna lost his life. Jules' accident led to the FIA to be more cautious when it came to vehicle recovery and was the reason why the Halo was introduced into Formula One. This is why everybody's mad at what happened. And the FIA, instead of saying, you know what, we made a mistake, we shouldn't have put the recovery tractor out there before everybody was in the pits, they said, well, Pierre, you were speeding under a red flag. We're going to give you a 20-second penalty and points on your driver's license or your super license. And everybody, including drivers, teams, and fans, are mad because they're saying, and if you look at the onboard, Pierre had less than 2 seconds to react to that red flag when he came out of turn 11 and the tractor was right there. What happened with Jules was a tragedy and something that honestly hadn't happened in such a long time. But now the FIA knows of the consequences of what happens when you take safety lightly, and yet they still did it. And honestly, everybody's mad at them, and they deserve all the hate because this was a reckless act. They have sensors on those cars, and they know exactly where those cars are on track. And here's the thing. They said he was speeding. He wasn't speeding. You have a delta time on the car. What that means is you're being showed how fast you can go before you're over the limit, and then you're given a penalty. And then this is that reduced speed. And again, he came out of turn 11. Yellow flags went into a red flag. He didn't have time to react. And even he said it, if I was 2 meters to the left, I would have hit that thing head on and I wouldn't be able to stop because of all the rain.
So that happened, but this is also like they didn't even postpone the race when it started raining like they usually do. So this whole week, they were just kind of reckless with safety a little bit.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, last week during the Singapore Grand Prix, there was this part where on the TV, the marshals were still out there trying to get the wing when they said, all right, green flag, everybody can race. And the announcer said, oh, that must be a replay. They can't have marshals out during a green flag. Well, because of how the FIA is acting right now, everybody's questioning, was that a replay? Because when you get a replay, it says replay on the top right corner of the screen. It says replay. That didn't say replay. And a lot of people at first thought, oh, God, they had the marshals out there while there was a green flag. And they're like, no, that's not it. But it looks like this is the case. And Pierre is being fined. Well, he's penalized unfairly. And it's just a bullshit call. And now
It wasn't his fault.
yeah. And the FIA is saying, hey, we're going to investigate this. The thing is, if you look on the onboard camera for Sebastian Vettel, the tractor was on the track before all the drivers were out of there. That's the thing. They were still going by the tractor when it came out. Like, you could see it on the onboard of Sebastian Vettel before the red flag. Like, this is unacceptable for the FIA to do. So, I don't know what's going to happen, but whoever was in charge, like, they got to be fired. Michael Massey, please come back. We made a mistake. That's all I got to say. But that was the Formula One review. That was the nondescript motorsport news. And boy, did we go long. So it's not up to you, Davis McLemore.
It is up to me to take this podcast to much lower lows than we have ever seen in the NFL. So we're going to start off week 5 of the NFL season. Thursday night football, the Indianapolis Colts played the Denver Broncos in what was probably what people are saying was one of the worst Thursday night football games, primetime games for that matter, of all time. And a lot of people are calling for Russell Wilson to be kicked off the Broncos.
To be fair, every time the Broncos have been out, it's kind of been a shit game.
It has. They just play ugly.
It was bad. Like, there was a lot of people who were saying, like, I've been a lifelong Broncos fan. I've been with them during their highs and during their lows. But fuck. Like, I've never experienced something like this in my 20, 30, even 40 years of watching and supporting this team. That has to say something.
It was an ugly game by both teams. But in the end, it went into overtime, and the Colts beat the Broncos 12-9.
Everybody wanted that game to end. Like, everybody.
Like, oh, God, this is terrible.
Wasn't there a mass exodus during the game as well?
Yes, right when they went into overtime, a lot of Denver Broncos fans just started walking out.
Don't blame them.
Don't blame them. Like last year when we were talking about all the Bills fans walking out.
That's true.
So,
But at least this time they had a reason why.
yeah. But, I mean, this was just an ugly, bad, horrible game.
Even saying that doesn't justify how bad and ugly this game was.
It just wasn't fun to watch. So we'll get to a much better primetime game later on. The Giants versus the Packers. The New York Giants beat the Packers 27-22.
Giants. I should have betted on my Giants. God damn it.
Daniel Jones was 21 for 27 for 217 yards. Saquon Barkley ran for 13 carries, 70 yards, and 1 touchdown. And they had 2 other rushing touchdowns from nondescript players that I can't really name. Aaron Rodgers was 25 for 39, 222 yards, and 2 touchdowns, while Aaron Jones carried the ball 13 times for 63 yards. And overall, this was a fairly entertaining game. It was played in London, and the Giants upset the Packers 27-22. Your thoughts?
I didn't watch. I didn't care. Move on.
Lions versus the Patriots.
No. Let's go back. I care about the other game. Let's talk about it.
We're gonna go here.
God
So,
damn it. Oh.
Jared Goff was 19 for 35, 229 yards and 1 touchdown. On the other side of the ball, Brandon Zapp I think that's his name, is Brandon Zapp. Bailey Zapp, my bad. Their second string quarterback, mind you, was 17 for 21, 188 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Whereas their running back, Ramondre Stevenson, was 25 carries for 161 yards. Overall, it was a very tough game and a tough loss for the Detroit Lions, your boys in blue. 0-29 New England Patriots. Your thoughts?
God, I'm rolling my face right now. Oh, it was an awful game. I'm not going to lie. It was a fucking awful game. Look, Dan Campbell, he sold us a bill of goods. He said
Don't be mad at Dan. Don't be mad at Dan Campbell here. I think one of your biggest problems was injuries, and you're just the Lions. It's okay.
He was going to change us. We were going to be a midfield team, and now we're just... we're as bad as the Las Vegas Raiders.
Well, you guys are the projected, as of this week, you guys are the projected number 1 pick in next year's draft. Guess who's projected as the number 2 pick? The Las Vegas Raiders. So, I mean, you can't be that mad. You can't. There's always a brighter side to this. Hey, you'll have the number 1 pick in next year's draft.
And they'll die.
Maybe.
And they'll die.
And then next year will be the same thing. But
oh, please, I'm begging you, just move on to the next game. I'm begging you, just move on.
Welcome to the 1-4 club, Jason. Welcome to the 1-4 club.
No, but really, I don't really fucking care. I got a Super Max win, World Championship, Red Bull. That's my
You're
team.
satisfied with that?
I'm satisfied. Honestly, I thought the Lions were going to be a team, that, okay, they got a chance. They might be a midfield team. They're going to do better. In reality, they're no better than Williams, or actually Haas, because Haas promised us a bill of goods, and we're in the same.
Well, Amon-Ra St. Brown was hurt, and he's really y'all's best player.
So was Swift.
And Swift was hurt. That's right. So I think that's what it was.
Injury has really been killing us this season.
Yes. Chargers versus the Browns. Not really much to say here. The Chargers, like we thought, beat the Browns 30-28. The Chargers are now second in the AFC West. They are 3-2. Justin Herbert was 22 for 34, 228 yards and 1 touchdown. Austin Eckler was 16 carries for 173 yards and 1 touchdown. On the other side of the ball, Jacoby Brissett was 21 for 34, 230 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Nick Chubb ran for 17 carries, 134 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Browns were great on the run game, but they just couldn't oust the Chargers passing game here. 30-28 Chargers. Your thoughts?
That's what I think.
We saw it coming. All right, Texans beat the Jaguars 13-6. Interesting fact. The Texans, since 2020, have only had 4 wins.
All of them against Jacksonville?
All of them against Jacksonville. And here they are again. The Houston Texans beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 13-6. Who cares? The Atlanta Falcons versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buccaneers beat the Falcons 21-15, and there was a controversial call in this game. It was a roughing the passer call that really was not roughing the passer. And of course, who else was being sacked? None other than Tom Brady. And a similar situation happened in the Raiders and Chiefs game. We'll get to that in a minute. Marcus Mariota.
Did it happen to Patrick Mahomes?
Yes. Marcus Mariota, 14 for 25, 147 yards and 1 touchdown. He also had 7 carries for 61 yards and averaged 8.7 yards per carry. On the other side of the ball, Tom Brady was 35 for 52, 351 yards and 1 touchdown. He was slanging that thing. And yeah, that was pretty much it. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, like they should, beat the Atlanta Falcons 21-15. Your thoughts? I
was talking to our friend Nate, and he was saying if they hadn't made that BS call, we could have won the game. And I'm like, dude, look, it's the fucking Falcons. It doesn't fucking matter. I mean, it was a shitty call. And when they asked Tom Brady about it, he's like, well, I don't throw the flags. So I'm guessing he knows, yeah, it was a fucking shitty call, but I'm not going to say anything. So that's the first... I don't think that's the first time, but the refs were fucking up a lot during that game, and it didn't stop there now, did it?
No, it did not. We're going to move on to the Steelers versus the Bills.
God.
Boy, what a beatdown this was. Kenny Pickett, quarterback for the Steelers, was 34 for 52, 327 yards, and 1 interception. On the other side of the ball, Josh Allen was 20 for 31, 424 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. What a fucking game. And I think it got so bad to the point where backup quarterback Case Keenum came in the last drive and went 2 for 5 for 8 yards. And Gabe Davis went off in this game. He was 3 receptions for 171 yards. He averaged 57 yards per reception and had 2 touchdowns on the day. And Stephon Diggs had 8 receptions, 102 yards, and 1 touchdown. This was a dominant game from the Buffalo Bills. And you just look at the stat lines and they outmatched them in every category possible. So overall, 38-3 Bills over the Steelers.
Told you, without their golden boy in defense, the Steelers fucking suck. Now, I saw an interesting video where they were talking about, what was the other quarterback before Pickett?
Mitchell Trubisky.
One, I think, coach with the Steelers was talking about how he was sad that Trubisky wasn't really given a chance by the fans. And essentially, he was, like, the first time he did bad, it was essentially thrown out and Pickett was in. What do you think of that?
Mitchell Trubisky has a history of not being very successful in the NFL. When he was on the Bears, he was consistently not good.
That is true.
So I think it's one of those things where they put Kenny Pickett in because they know what they're going to get out of Mitchell Trubisky. So, yeah. Dolphins versus the Jets. This was a tough one for our friend Bog across the pond.
Hey, Davis, what did you say last week that I should not have done?
Bet on the Dolphins?
No, you idiot. I bet it on the Jets.
I said bet on the Dolphins, and then you went, the New York Jets, and I said, that's better. Remember?
I thought it was the other way around.
No.
Well, hey, at least my assumption was right. Without Tua, they're fucked.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, Jets won this game 40-17. Teddy Bridgewater, their backup quarterback, actually went out in this game with another concussion, and they had to put in their third-string quarterback in this game. So it went from bad to worse.
Do they have a 4th-string quarterback?
He needs to be getting ready. But I have no update currently on when either Teddy Bridgewater or Tua Tagovailoa are going to come back. So,
told you. As long as Tua is healthy, that team is going to be great. As soon as Tua gets hurt, it's downhill from here, baby.
Chicago Bears versus the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings won 29-22. The Tennessee Titans beat the Washington Commanders 21-17. The New Orleans Saints beat the Seattle Seahawks 39-32. The 49ers beat the Panthers 37-15. The Eagles beat the Cardinals 20-17. The Cowboys beat the Rams 22-10. And the Ravens beat the Bengals 19-17. Any thoughts on the preceding games?
Nope. Let's move on to Monday Night Football.
No, let's not. We can skip this week of Monday Night Football.
Oh, now you want to skip. No,
Yeah,
you want.
it's not, nothing really
now
happened.
You want me to be thoughtful.
It was just a regular week in Monday Night Football. Raiders versus the Kansas City Chiefs.
Actually, Davis, you got to say it now like this.
I'll say
The Raiders.
So,
And the Chiefs.
Derek Carr was 19 for 30, 241 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs was 21 carries for 154 yards and 1 touchdown.
Please, let's get to the juicy bits.
We'll get to the juicy bits.
Look, nobody wants.
Let me go over the stats so then I can get to the juicy bits.
Look, nobody wants to hear the
Davante
stats.
Adams.
They want to hear the juicy bits because, boy, was it a fucking game.
Davante Adams was 3 for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. On the other side of the ball, Patrick Mahomes was 29 for 43, 292 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Travis Kelce was 7 for 29 yards. 7 for 25 yards and 4 receiving touchdowns. That's fucking ridiculous that Travis Kelce got 4 touchdowns. I didn't even know that until now. But in rushing yards, in the run game, we beat them, but they had us in the passing game. Not going to lie. We were up at halftime 20-10, and I was ecstatic. But I said to you, I think it was you that I said it to, I'm happy, but at the same time, I'm not going to be until this game is over. Because just like the game against the Arizona Cardinals, it's going to happen again. And it did. Kansas City came out of the half and scored 14 unanswered in the third quarter. We came back and we scored 9 in the fourth quarter. They scored 6, and we scored a touchdown in the last few minutes, and we made it 28-30. No, we made it 29-30. That's right. So here's where it gets interesting. Instead of tying the game and giving us an opportunity to go into overtime, Josh McDaniels calls for the team to go for 2. I thought that was a fucking stupid idea. And what happened? We missed the 2-point conversion. So that was the way it went. But we made another big defensive stop, and we had just a minute or so left on the clock. And I was like, okay, this is time. This is time to be the best possible Raiders team we can be.
This is the time to disprove everyone.
This is the time. You've been playing great. We were playing great all game. Our defense led up there at the beginning of the second quarter, but now they're back cooking because we just got a big stop late in the fourth, and I'm like, okay, now we're going. Now we got to be consistent. We got to do it. No mistakes. No nothing. Just sling it. And Derek Carr was slinging it. Bang, completion. Bang, completion. Bang, completion. He was on fire. Davante Adams was on fire. And then he'd turn around, hand it to Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs would get like 6, 7, 8 yards. You know, we were rolling down the field. It got down to where the Chiefs defense made one good stop, and we were at 4th and 1, just outside of field goal range. And we said, you know what? We have roughly a little bit less than a minute here. We're going to take a shot. I liked the call to take a shot because you had Davante Adams one-on-one downfield. And I love Davante Adams one-on-one because he's like a basketball player. He posts up, he grabs it, and he can just snatch it and take off running. And it was fantastic. But Hunter Renfrow ran his route a little too long. And you see, the problem here is they were going to do an out route. Hunter Renfrow was supposed to do an out route while Davante Adams did a post. And that Hunter Renfrow out route would help him pick the defender that was on Davante. And it would also make Davante Adams not get double teamed. So Hunter Renfrow would run to the outside right behind Davante Adams, and Derek Carr would throw it deep to Davante. But Hunter Renfrow ran his route just a little too long, turned around, and Davante Adams was right there, and they went smack right into each other. And they fell in a heap. Derek Carr threw the ball, and no one was there. And I said, oh, fuck. My first reaction was, all right, there must have been a pass interference or something, because all I saw out of, it was just while the ball was passing over him, I just saw Davante Adams fall. And I said, oh, shit, that's a pass interference right there. We're going to get a first down. It's going to be great. But nope. Hunter Renfrow and Davante Adams ran into each other, and the Chiefs took over, and it was 29-30 Chiefs. Now, after the game, Davante Adams shoved a cameraman for the NFL, and, he threw, you even saw right before he shoved the guy, he was standing right there next to Hunter Renfrow, and he threw his helmet down, and he was fucking yelling, and he was like, fuck. And he was walking to the locker room, and there was a media worker right there in front of him, and he just shoved him to the fucking ground and stepped over him and walked off. And as of this morning, Raiders wide receiver Davante Adams has been charged with misdemeanor assault for shoving a media worker after Monday's loss in Kansas City to the Chiefs. Adams was cited for an intentional overact that inflicted bodily injury, according to courts released Wednesday. The man shoved by Adams, identified by police as Ryan Zebley, suffered whiplash, a headache, and possible minor concussion from the incident, according to reports. Zebley was working for ESPN's Monday Night Football as a freelance photographer The charges were filed Wednesday morning in Municipal Court of Kansas City. Adams is due back in the Court of Kansas City on November 10th. If convicted, Adams could face a jail term of up to 6 months or a fine of up to $1,000. Adams apologized after the game, saying the shove was just frustration mixed with Zelbley literally just running out in front of him. The veteran player is facing discipline from the NFL, a source told ESPN's Adam Schefter. And Raiders coach Josh McDaniel voiced his support for Adams on Tuesday afternoon, saying the post-game incident was an unfortunate situation. We obviously don't want any of our guys to be doing anything like that, McDaniel said. He knows that. He's very, very well aware of that. But I know the person. I don't think there was any intent behind it on his part. And that was from ESPN's Paul Gutierrez, and the Associated Press contributed to this report. Also within the game, there was several bad calls. There was an incomplete pass that was should have been complete to Davante Adams, but we overcame the penalties. We overcame the bad calls, and we were able to keep right up with the Chiefs. But the bad play calling,
The bad luck
from Josh McDaniels is ultimately what cost us this game. There is no universe where you should have gone for 2 in that situation. You should have kept it tied, let the defense make a stop, and then go into overtime. But he was gutsy. He was trying to be gutsy. But there's a difference between being gutsy and being smart. And he was not smart.
Where was that gutsiness the last 3 weeks?
I couldn't tell you.
Literally the worst time possible to be gutsy. You're gutsy. Fuck.
He's either too conservative or he's just dumb. There's no in between. There's no good in between. He's not like a great aggressive play caller that takes chances. He doesn't know how to do that. It just comes across as him being stupid.
I want to say one thing about the Adams things. Adams said that the camera guy walked in front of him and he was mad and he pushed him off. No, I was watching that video. The camera guy was trying to get out of Davante's way, and Davante just pushed him. Honestly, I hope he gets punished severely because that was stupid. If you have a problem...
That really was stupid.
If you're angry and you have a problem with one of the players, you take it up with the fucking player, but you do it in the fucking locker room. You don't do it out there because it's bad for the team morality.
You don't take it out on anybody else.
Exactly. I hope, I know he's not going to get the 6 months, but I hope he gets a month in prison. You know why? He fucking deserves it. Do a stupid, dumb fuck thing, get punished, move on.
I don't hope jail time on him. I hope that he faces a hefty fine. Even if the dude decides to sue, I hope he gets what he gets.
Well, he's got a nice paycheck, Davante, so he can afford $100,000.
We might know a lawyer he can call. I don't know.
We're not getting paid, so no.
He's not paying us, so we're not going to mention his name. But yeah, look, honestly, it was a great game. It was an entertaining game. I loved it. And when I was watching it, I was saying to myself, this is the Raider team that I've wanted all along. And just one bad play, one miscommunication at the end of the game cost us everything, honestly.
All right. Say you're in charge. That happens. Renfro gets in the way, goes long, collides with Adams. What do you do? What is the best course of action? Do you just go, look, it was a mistake. I'm sorry. Go apologize to Adams. Say, look, man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Go on social media and say, look, I'm sorry, guys. I fucked up. I own up to it. I learned from it. Let's move on. I promise I won't do this again. Or do you go, what a fucking dumb fuck, all right? What do you do in this situation?
When I was heated, my first reaction was just fucking cut Hunter Renfro. This dude needs to get the fuck out of here.
Wasn't he the one that was fucking up one of the week?
It was the one that fumbled the ball that allowed Arizona Cardinals to beat us in overtime.
Doesn't that sound familiar?
Yeah.
What do you say now?
Look, now that I've cooled off, Hunter Renfro is still a good player, and he is good at what he does. So you would be stupid to just throw him away because he made a couple mistakes. But I don't know what it was so uncharacteristic of him because usually he's a great route runner. He fucked it up that time. So I don't know. I would keep him. I wouldn't cut him, but he would obviously get punished in some kind of way, you know. Not severely, but yeah. Okay, now it's time for the part in the episode where we finally do our bets. Give us the results from last week.
You went 6-0.
Oh, yeah.
But I am still ahead by 1 point because
By one game.
By one game because I went 5-1. Damn Lions. I had faith in you boys. But yes, I am ahead by a single game. So that's great.
Oh, yeah. What was that one?
Yeah. You're 6-0. I'm still ahead by a single game. All right. Don't get your panties in a wad.
What's 9 plus 10?
I don't know. You tell me.
21. Anyway, how does it feel to only be one game ahead of me?
It's better. Could be worse. I could fumble at the last second and hit my partner.
That's true. Hopefully you don't. Or I could just dominate you and beat you 28-0, you know. All right, let's go on. All right. Well, I'm going to go first since I did win. I went undefeated last week, in case we didn't cover. I'm going to pick the Commanders versus the Bears. I'm going to pick the Bears going over in this one.
Easy win for you. I am going to go the Ravens. Losing to the New York Giants.
Oh, that's... Honestly, I can see that one, though. That might be a good pick.
New York has been very kind to me.
Every time you pick New York, they go over, so...
Even when I don't pick New York, they go over.
Well, for my next game, I think I'm going to go with the Bengals versus the Saints, and I'm going to go with the Bengals beating the Saints.
I'm going to go for an easy one, Jags over the Colts, especially after the last primetime game. Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. I don't blame you. Buccaneers versus the Steelers, I believe, will be my next game, and obviously I will pick the Buccaneers. Easy pick.
I am going for another controversial one. I am going the New York Jets beating out the Wisconsin Packers.
The Green Bay Packers, but yeah.
I mean, it is Wisconsin.
Basically. But no, I like that pick, honestly. It's a little bit controversial. Either way you would have gone, I would have liked it, but that's a good pick. I'm going to go in prime time. Wait, will it be prime time? It should be a prime time game. I feel like this is a big game. The Bills versus the Chiefs, and I'm going to pick the Bills beating the Chiefs.
That one's going to be an interesting one.
That is going to be a good one. We're going to find out. I think we will know from that game alone who deserves to be NFL MVP.
Maybe so. But I am going to go Vikings over the Dolphins. Since Tua's out, so is the Dolphins.
Solid pick. You have nowhere else to go. I mean, Dolphins aren't giving you any reason to think otherwise. I'm going to go with the Sunday Night Football showdown between the Cowboys versus the Eagles. I'm going to, of course, pick the Eagles to beat the Cowboys.
Good move. All right, I am going to go for an easy one. Rams over the Panthers. Oh, by the way, we forgot to mention, Panthers head coach got fired on Monday, and he was replaced.
Well, and all the more reason to pick the Rams. So, for my final game, I believe I'm going to stay within the AFC West, and I'm going to pick the Chargers beating the sloppy Broncos, because Russ can't cook. Bronco Nation, let's ride. Chargers over the Broncos.
Who thought it was a great idea to put him almost a week off and then back on the primetime game? That was fucking stupid. I am going...
No. People just think Russell Wilson, he used to be in primetime. Yeah. Well, he fucking sucks. And he's proven that he fucking sucks. He had his best game against the Raiders. So...
But it was against the Raiders.
It was against the Raiders, so...
Anyway, I'm going to go Cardinals versus Seahawks. Cardinals going over.
Fair enough. And also, Raiders and the Lions next week have a bye. So, how coincidental is that?
That the two worst teams in the NFL have a bye.
Well, not even just the two worst teams in the NFL, but our two teams have an off week next week. So, is Formula One off next week?
I think they're off for about 2 weeks while they fly everything over to the United States.
So next week will be a pretty laid back week. We're not going to really be involved.
No, hopefully it'll be damn shorter than this week because we're about an hour and 11 minutes before post-production.
Oh, man. You're going to have fun when you get home because we're recording late, too. We're recording on a Wednesday. But anyway, I'm not going to give you any more time. Can I go ahead and sign us off?
Sign us off, white boy.
Thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Waterboy Experience. We hope you appreciate this episode, and we hope that you follow us on Instagram at the Waterboy Pod or on Twitter at the Waterboy EXP. Just to let you know, coming soon, we have several new branches of the Waterboy coming soon. You will have more details on those eventually. Yes, the Waterboy Experience YouTube channel is coming soon.
What about your other project that's debuting October 31st like you promised? Or are you
The
going to
Cold
go back
Case
on your
Cafe?
Yeah, the Cold Case Cafe.
It's debuting. It's debuting. Cold Case Cafe is debuting on October 31st. The episode will be releasing October 31st. By hell or high water, it will be out. And, you know, go ahead, go look it up on Spotify or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Go listen to the trailer. See if you like it. And, you know, I think that one is going to be one of our best projects.
We haven't even recorded the pilot, and yet you're already announcing October 31st is going to be released.
October 31st. Be there. Be square.
Oh, God, I got a lot of editing coming up.
Oh,
don't I?
yeah, you do. Don't worry. I think I have somebody that'll help you out with it. We don't know. But anyway.
Just like they helped us out in episode 2?
No, that's a different guy. Anyway, thank you guys for listening to the Waterboy Experience. And peace.
Second and goal just outside the 10. Hart tips it in and it's Waller. He spins into the end zone for the touchdown. You're watching greatness on one end. In LeBron, there's a dude with 35 in white getting it done defensively and then offense taking over.